Welcome, Tiny Hands, Big Dreams, here on our homestead in southern Ecuador. So we see the question all the time, how do I get started homesteading? I want to homestead. What do I need to know?
So we're gonna make a video for you if you are that person, if you've asked that question, if you've agreed with that question and wondered too, no matter where you are, what you're doing, if you want to homestead, we're gonna give you kind of our opinion on the things to know before you even get started.
Coming from people who weren't that way, who learned it, who got there, or living it now, we're going to give you that opinion of our hard-earned lessons. So maybe the most important thing is visualize what you want. Get that grand picture in your head, sketch it if that's your thing. I don't draw. Have the dream.
Yeah, and that's, is your goal to have, half an acre of land? Is it 100 acres? Are you raising animals, or are you just gardening? There's no rules to homesteading. Despite what some people might tell you, there aren't rules. It's whatever you want it to be. So know what you want, though. Know what your goal is, because you can't go forward to reach that goal if you don't know what it is. So visualize your life in the future on your homestead. And what does it look like?
Now, that being said, you can have all of the grand designs in the world. You can pencil it out. I even worked for a guy who did the entire massive dream of his in absolute micro detail. Right down to the garden beds, the faucets, the things, the stuff, engineering drawings. He was an engineer. And then a lot of it didn't get used and fell into disrepair, and then some of it wasn't right, and other parts of it weren't right because they weren't, it was too much pre-thought, not enough kind of reacting to the situation.
Lived experience that will
Yes.
kind of inform how you build things. We've done that many, many, many times. I think the easiest example is I would build paths, and instead of building paths where I might think that it would look nice, I would build paths, and I still do, where we naturally walk. Because otherwise, nobody's going to walk on my path. They're going to walk in the mud next to my path, and that's not really helpful for anyone. So you have to look at how you actually use your land, and how things actually work for you to try to build the systems. That makes sense?
It does. Sometimes following, if you get a piece of land and then you're like, well, how do I get from here to there? Was there an old cow path? The cows figured it out before you did. Or you go to an apartment or a big government complex, and there's all the neat engineer laid out sidewalks and things, and then there's these very well-worn shortcuts between said sidewalks, because that's where people will naturally go. Had they done it after the fact, they would have put them in the right place. It would have been far more organic. People wouldn't just be crossing, killing the grass.
Yep.
So some of it is just get in and start. Every piece of land is different. Your ideas are always different. And then sort of hey, I really need this, or I need this other thing, or this is important. Kind of build on the fly there.
So that's one thing that it's a little controversial. My opinion is not most of the advice you'll get, especially on the internet, when it comes to homesteading. A lot of people say, start slow, plan it all out, have all of your systems in place before you get an animal, for example. It's beautiful in concept. I think it'd be great to be able to do that in a lot of ways. It's probably better for the animals in some ways. The reality is, I don't think most people have that ability, or the forethought into things, or the motivation. We were just talking about this. So our goats did not have houses when we moved to this property. They were out all night, which I know people will just rage over. It wasn't ideal. They were fine, but it wasn't great. We needed to get them in houses quickly. So we had that motivation to build the houses, to get it done. And honestly, without the motivation, if we didn't have the goats yet, I don't think we would have goat houses yet.
Well, we spent, a month, 2 months?
Something like that.
Yeah, building the goat houses. It took quite a while. Would we have done it beforehand? We didn't really have the ability beforehand. We weren't here.
Well, but even if we had like come without goats
But then
and built them first,
we may have put them somewhere wrong.
or it just would have never gotten done because it would have been the bottom of the priority because something else was more important.
Thing, you know, we go this way without, you know, there's a goat. And then, so you start to figure out, like, I really think it should be over here just because how you're using it, which means had you pre-built that, it might have been in the wrong spot, and undoing something that you've already built is like heartbreaking.
To be completely honest, they are kind of in the wrong spot because we planned ahead a little bit. We kind of had to in our particular situation, and they've ended up closer to the house we're building than we'd like them to be. Now, we couldn't wait longer, but if we had waited longer, we probably would have put them in a different place.
Maybe a little further away from our house location.
So it's one of those things, there's no perfect answer. I think that planning ahead can be very useful. I also think that for some people, like I know me, you just have to jump in and do it. You're going to learn more hands-on, your land, your animals, your garden, your house, your whatever. You're going to do things differently than perhaps you learned from someone else because every situation is so different.
It really is. And then, yeah, so, I mean, you could follow all the best advice, and there's people tell you, you should have this exact chicken tractor, and you should do this thing this way, and your animal's this way, and then you get there, and you're like, this doesn't work for me at all. And it probably doesn't. Figure out your own way. Your own way is what is comfortable to you, what is the least amount of work, it makes you happy to do versus some other way that you just hate.
What you can do. And that's something that like a lot of people don't talk about. Like what can you do? What are your costs? What things are available to you?
Does your property look like this or like this? Oh, those chicken tractors don't work anymore, do they?
So along the same lines, you need to know what you can do. Now, this is sort of a weird, maybe a little bit esoterical of a conversation. When we started homesteading, we didn't have any knowledge, ability, experience, anything.
I grew up in a suburb in California.
I had gardened. I was born on a farm, but that doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah, my farming experience goes back 3 generations before me.
Yeah. But we have abilities between the two of us. Just natural abilities, things we've learned. Now, coming to where we are, which is the edge of the jungle in Ecuador, and we're doing everything ourselves. I look at this from a perspective of I have certain skills and Chris has certain skills, and they don't all overlap. Now, there are skills I could learn that I don't want to and I don't need to. Thank you. And there are also skills that I know myself well enough to know I could not learn. So solar, for instance, which is incredibly important for us being off-grid. If I was on my own doing this, well, I wouldn't be because I just wouldn't be, but no way. But I know that I would not be able to learn how to manage the solar, how to build it, how to anything.
Our adventure, we chose the extreme setting on everything. Like we turned it up to 11 with like with everything. So it takes the sum of both of our skills, and we've learned a lot of those skills sort of on the fly.
But I think just my point is knowing your own personal abilities, skills, and abilities to learn things. I am not math-minded. I can't handle numbers. My brain just doesn't. I know you always think I can just, well, you could just learn.
And it's then I see the funny faces of the hamster dying inside there.
It doesn't work no matter how hard I try. It's like I use the example in high school. I was in theater. I was a theater kid. And we were doing a musical. And they're all like, oh, we can teach you to sing. No, you can't. Yeah, everyone can learn to sing. No, I can't. And after about a day and a half, they're like, well, maybe you should mouth the word. So not everyone can learn everything. And I see people jump in to homesteading, off-grid, whatever it is. Let's just talk simple, basic homesteading. You want to garden and have animals, and relatively simple. if there are things in that life that you want, but you can't do, you know yourself, and you cannot do them, I think it's better to acknowledge that in the beginning, to go, this is either something I really, really don't want to do, or I can't do. My brain just doesn't do this.
There's ways to plan around those things. There's a way to set yourself up so that like you either don't have to, or somebody else can do that part, or you've gotten some sort of like package answer for that helps you out.
There are too many people
in the beginning is the best.
There are too many people who jump into something like, say, solar, which I can't begin to answer questions on, and they're like, well, what do I do? If you have to ask that kind of question, which is the same question I would ask, you probably shouldn't be trying to build your own system. That's just the reality, and that's fine. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think it's very important to know yourself and acknowledge that up front.
Yep.
Especially if you're doing it with someone. Don't be like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. No, just be honest about like, this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. So everybody's on the same page, and you're not promising something to yourself or someone else that you just cannot deliver on.
Right. Now, that being said, you are going to push your skill sets. Oh, yeah. You're going to learn new things. You're going to do all sorts of stuff that you've never done before, which is great. It's fun. It's exciting. You get to do something new all the time. You're not just sitting doing the same thing every day, all day at a desk or in a factory or thing. You're
just having problems.
Oh, there we go. A little finger. So this brings us to basic problem solving. Learn to identify the problem. Learn to kind of understand how that problem really applies to what's causing it, how to solve it.
Literally, all of homesteading basically is problem solving.
So today, we have water for the pigs, which is it was a post, and then they undermine and knock down the post because they scratch on it. 490 million pound pig. So now their water's down. Thanks, pig. So I moved it to his giant stump in the ground. Now they've undermined the stump and used it to scratch on again, and it is down again. Okay, I put a steel post in concrete. Well, they're already 3 foot below where they started. So how deep would I have had to dig that post? 6 feet deep? Oh my gosh. So I have to go solve this problem, and it's look at it, figure it out, some sort of answer. You have to solve the problem. Pigs have to have water.
Yep.
Unique to us, but that kind of thing is something's going to happen every day. I need some way to this or that, or I have to have a gate in a field, but it's wonky. Come up with some sort of workable answer.
And most likely, you're not going to have tons of money to just go buy an answer.
Or call somebody out, and they're going to do an estimate and a thing and a something and a this. And if you did that for everything, oh gosh, you better have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Most people want a homestead sort of on a shoestring budget. They'll have some seed money to get started to buy some stuff, and then you're going to kind of take care of stuff yourself.
Yeah. So being able to problem solve is absolutely key to being able to homestead.
Yep. Calmly look at it and decide how you can solve it. And so one of the tools that you're going to need for that, how to research. And research is getting harder.
We actually did a video on that.
We did a video on it. It's getting more difficult, and you need to be aware of that. We did a video on the dangers of AI. There is now, I've seen advice that says you can actually short circuit Google, but you search, what is it, before : 2023. And you start your search terms with that, and by doing that, you get only answers from before 2023, before AI started populating the web with, in a lot of cases, garbage. Looks official, is referenced multiple places. It's garbage on top of garbage on top of garbage, and it's getting worse very quickly. So research is getting hard. I saw one guy came up with an answer, and it was to use Yandex, Yandex, which is a different search engine out of a different country. Does not pollute all your searches with all the garbage, and all the. If you look at Google now, it's all just
Yeah, it's mostly nonsense.
It's all just businesses and things, and it's fake businesses trying to get it. Okay, it doesn't help you. So getting real research, getting good books, old books.
There's
Videos are mostly still real people as of today.
unless you don't see someone's real face and then question it a lot, because there's a lot of you don't really see a person, and I don't
the
really
fake
buy
robot
it.
voices are getting pretty convincing on the new stuff. Be aware.
There are online libraries, which we have found recently, that are pretty awesome.
Yeah, like
We'll link a couple below.
Every book in the world, research papers. Oh my gosh, huge resource. But you get into like, I really have this weird problem thing, and to learn to do the research, figure out similar situations, watch videos of people, be like, part of this works, not all of it. Part of this one works, but not all of it. This one, I can use this one tidbit from this one. And I've done this before when I had we've learned a lot of skills in the past few years. Let me give you one example. When we were in Tennessee, the floors on the house had sagged out. Oh God, like the whole house is just like sagged, sad floor. So I'm like, how do I do this? And I watched a whole bunch of different videos. None of them were quite right, but I got the gist of it based on all of them. Tried to pull the best practices, got the whole thing straightened. There was like no catastrophes. It worked out. Like that's normally like a huge engineering feat thing, special contractors. Oh my gosh, tons of money. No, money spent was on a couple of jacks and my time,
which we still have, so it's not.
And some wood,
yeah,
some 4x4s. So yeah, like it is possible to do that.
Yeah. Research is I don't know. I think it's kind of a funny thing. It's maybe a little bit of a double-edged sword. It's very easy to get stuck in the research of things and not go back to just do it.
Watch out for a lot of things. Watch out for people like, oh yeah, I just did this thing for the first time, and you haven't actually finished it. Oh, you're terrible advice.
The one I go to a lot, because it's kind of more my side of what we do, is taking care of the animals. There's a lot of, most of what you're going to find is US based information. That's just what's out there. It's also what's in English, which
is what we search.
And honestly, trying to translate things, you can lose critical information too easily, so that can be a little bit dangerous. So I tried to research something about an animal. Well, that's a US perspective, which is honestly a very small part of the entire world. You're going to miss out on a lot of other information. So that's one thing, and it is not going to apply to every situation, everything you're researching, but gardening, animals, animal processing, if that's something you want to do. Be open to other countries and their information that might suit you better. I found a lot of butchers from England process their animals more the way I want to. So that's kind of what I ended up looking at.
Because it was outside of USDA.
Yeah.
Which
is its own thing and only applies to US, and I didn't want to do it that way.
We get into gardening, and it was like there's Hawaii data, there's a little bit of India, there's Australia. We have a different climate than most of the US, so a lot of that is difficult.
But there's also parts of the US that I realized, like Florida.
Sure.
We're not that different from Florida in climate, and yet I'm sure people in Florida are probably having a pretty hard time finding information because most of it's US based and therefore not suitable to their climate. So I guess that's just to be open to other countries, and different perspectives on how to solve a problem.
And sometimes look at the older perspectives. There was a site we used to watch a lot of their videos, Deep South Homestead.
Yeah.
And they literally said, look, the next generation doesn't want to do what we want to do, at least in their family. So we're putting out all this information because otherwise we worry it'll be lost. They're very altruistic motives of just putting it all out there. You have a farm, lots and lots of really good information that's been tested over decades and passed down from generations. It's good info. I don't know that it's ever going to go out of style.
No. So finding some of those resources, where they've really been doing it, and if it's either in your area or a similar area, is going to be just better for you. So as a bit of an example, we've put up 2 videos now on our house flip in Tennessee, which is how we got to Ecuador. They're pretty fun to watch.
There's There's honestly some really good stuff in there.
Yeah.
It's a crazy transformation. It's worth seeing.
So, so in doing that, we learned an incredible amount. That's really where we
Ooh.
learned, honestly, everything.
Let's
within
actually
2 years.
Let's list some of those.
Okay.
You learned
Well, there's
the art of smooching and painting to make walls perfect. Okay.
which was not a research skill.
No.
That was simply I did it.
Yeah.
But
Drywall.
we learned to drywall.
I learned.
Masonry, tile.
Oh my gosh! Like crazy levels of masonry of huge problematic rivers coming through the basement had to fix to be dry.
And tiling.
Tiling. We learned how to be tile. We learned how to do flooring. I learned how to be a roofer. That's fun. Rewired the whole house. Replumbed the whole house. Every inch of plumbing was replaced, head to tail.
And that's only
outside.
the house. We
That's just the
also, I
house.
mean, that's also where we learned all of our homesteading.
What's a French drain? Why do I need it? How do I make one? Okay.
And then all the gardening, building beds, building soil, caring for animals. This is where I started all the butchering of our own animals, which was a huge thing to
What
learn.
setup do I need to butcher an animal? Great.
And then realizing, and this is, I guess, the combination of the two. I researched like crazy, and then realized that I didn't want to do it like anyone said. It didn't work for me. So I had to, take the research. I did it the way that everyone said. Realized I didn't like it. It didn't work for me. Okay, and then what works for me? And now I have a system, and it works relatively smoothly.
And it works really well. But what's a good duck house? There's a bunch of cutesy stuff. We had to learn, like, what are the actual important attributes of building an animal shelter thing? Okay, let's build that. So there's a ton of things that, you dig into it. You do your research, you ignore a good bit of it, you take the good bits, you repackage it to fit you. This is the essence of learning to homestead off on your own and making what you have work well. And every situation is different.
And that's not to say we know everything now, because we're now learning completely different things in a completely different place. Instead of remodeling a house, we're building a house from mud and sticks mostly, which we don't know how to do.
But we're going to do it anyway, and it's going to be lovely. It's going to work out. Everything else has always worked out. We figure it out. We don't give up.
Yep.
Be resilient.
Yep.
So we're going to cover in our next video some really important items of what we found is really useful that we didn't know about, that we didn't think about, that nobody told us about, that we had to sort of learn, that are
just like really core basic skills. And part of the intention behind this is not, these are things you learn once you're on your homestead. Because I also know there's a lot of people, because we've been in this position of wanting to, but for whatever reason, you're not there yet.
There are things you can learn now, no matter where you are, even if it's just a little tiny apartment.
Or a trailer park, because we've been there too.
That you can literally build those skills that make you that much more effective when you do get to where you want to be.
So these are going to be skills that really, no matter where you are in life or physically, you can do them. And that'll prepare you for homesteading. Yeah. So
if you'd like to see those, definitely subscribe so that you get notified when it comes out. We don't get a ton of shows on our thing, so it may not pop up again. Comment, talk to us. We respond to all the comments. If you give us a like, we appreciate the heck out of it. So from here in southern Ecuador, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us.